Hello, all. It is Dr. Wright, and today in Random in Psychology, we're actually talking about pain and pain sensation, which, as a person who has chronic pain, I found the number that the random number generator picked. I opened up the page and looked and was like, well, all right then. We'll talk about that today. What I did notice is that the book that I'm using as I'm preparing to teach general psychology again, because I haven't taught it in a while, does not have a lot of focus on pain sensation, any of that sort of stuff. So I sent a message to the publishers and was like, hey, we might want to work on this a little bit, because the information that I have, even though I haven't taught this in a really long time, is more than the paragraph that you have on the book. So we are going to talk about how pain works today. And pain's really interesting. It's actually a pretty complex sensory and perception area. So one of the things that we know is that, we've talked before about how when we sense stuff, it comes in through our senses and it goes up to the brain, and then the brain processes it and we apply a label to it and go like, oh, I smell chocolate chip cookies, right? Ooh, chocolate cookies. But with pain, it's a little bit different. So what ends up happening is that sensory neurons in different parts of the body, let's say that they sense pain, and they, rather than sending the message to the brain going, ooh, that's bad, let's not do that, it actually goes to the dorsal horn, which is part of the spinal cord. And the spinal cord sends back a message that says, like, yeah, we're done with that, pull back. And so even without any sort of brain function going on, or I shouldn't say brain function because it's still functioning, right? But without intervention from the brain, we retract whatever it is so that we can move away from the pain. And then the message gets sent to the brain and the brain realizes what's going on. So we can start off by talking about specialized sensory nerve endings, which are called nociceptors. Those are found in your skin, in your muscles, in your joints, some of your organs, and those are going to detect harmful stimuli. There's three types of stimuli. So there's mechanical, which is like a pressure or a stretching or even a cutting. There's thermal, hot, too cold. And then there's chemical, such as something that's irritating or damaging, some substance that's damaging our skin maybe. And when these nociceptors are activated, they convert the harmful stimulus into electrical signals. Then those electrical signals are transmitted to the spinal cord. So as they're traveling to the spinal cord, they can be traveling on what we call A delta fibers, which are actually myelinated fibers that transmit signals very quickly. Myelin is a fatty substance that surrounds the axon of a neuron or a nerve, and helps to transmit the information more quickly. And so if the pain is sharp and localized, then it is going to be dealt with by a delta, so much more quickly. Whereas if the pain is a dull, aching, or burning pain that's less localized, then it's going to go on a C fiber, which is going to be unmyelinated, and it's going to travel more slowly. So those are going to then reach the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, and they release neurotransmitters like glutamate and substance P, and those are going to activate secondary neurons. And then the secondary neurons will then transmit the pain signals up to the brain via various pathways, including through the spinothalamic tracts. So keep in mind that if the pain is intense, then the reflex arc is going to be activated. So again, the reflex arc is where the information travels to the dorsal horn. The dorsal horn then sends back a message to retract or to move, and that happens even before any sort of information gets to your brain. So as I said, in many cases, a protective motor response, like withdrawing your hand from a hot stove, can occur before the conscious perception of pain arises in the thalamus, in the cortex, and that's called the reflex arc. So basically, the nociceptors activate because the painful stimulus activates the nociceptors in the affected body part. Signal transmission, signal travels along the sensory nerve fiber to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. It synapses or interacts with interneurons, and then the motor neurons directly synapse with the ventral horn in the spinal cord to retract, and then the muscles will contract. And then as that process is going on, the information is going to be traveling up to our brain, to the thalamus, which is kind of the relay station of the brain. It's going to send the information to the sensory cortex, where it will be perceived as pain. So we may actually have already moved before we recognize that our hand hurts. Today has been pain in random in psychology, and I will talk to you tomorrow.